Alright guys, I just brought this thing back around after a pretty good sized long test drive, and it did die while I was driving it, and a big puff of white come out of the carburetor. Poof, everywhere. So now when I crank it, this is what I hear. So I don't know for sure what all went wrong in here, but it might be something in the valve train. I'm just gonna check that out right now and see, did I bend a push rod, break a rock or something or other. I don't know for sure what all could have happened, but something's not good. And if I blew this thing up, I'm gonna need to put another engine into here before the race in July at a place called Wimborne, Alberta, where, yeah, this is the place to go for racing here in Alberta, so, or in this kind of area of Alberta. So also I did check the oil and there is something in it, but it also could have sucked all of the oil into the everything and just, I don't know, maybe I cracked a piston ring land or something, but we'll see what happens. I'm gonna pull this valve cover off and we'll see if there's anything abnormal in there. Hopefully not. I mean, hopefully yes, hopefully not, whatever. I don't know if I can get this thing to go again, but after I do that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is pulling the spark plug out so we can see, is it covered in oil? Is there something, like, I don't know for sure what went on, but I might have blown this engine up in a stock form. I haven't even unhooked the governor yet, which would suck and would mean that I need to build another engine for this thing to keep this thing operational. Hopefully not. Alright guys, I got my 2 bolts out of the valve cover. Now let's go ahead and pop this thing off and see what happens. I have my drain pan from last time underneath here. Oh yeah, exhaust rocker came off, which means likely that I had this adjusted too loose and it just popped off because it had too much valve clearance. And that is part of why you should always make sure that your valves are set properly, unlike obviously like I did. I obviously didn't tighten these good enough, the rocker arm jam nuts, and this one's also really loose. You can see how much play that thing's got. Like, yeah, so obviously I didn't tighten these jam nuts good enough, but I figured out why it's not running great and why that happens, so that's great. It did try to run though, even with an exhaust rocker off, which is nuts. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and fix these and we'll see if it runs. Alright guys, so I got my valves adjusted properly this time, and I'm now turning the engine over to make sure that they are not having loose spots, and I'm turning, and we got have an intake valve that moves, and when we go for the exhaust, stays perfectly stationary. And now we're going back to intake stroke and no exhaust, which means either this push rod is out of the lifter, hopefully, or I wiped the lobe off the cam, which would suck. And it looks fairly aligned in here, and yeah, I'll pull the push rod out, because if it bent the push rod and that's why the exhaust rocker fell off, that could be part of it. So we'll see what happens here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that apart right now. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this push rod out, and then we'll just inspect it and see if it's really bent or not. And we'll see what happens. Right, so I got this push rod pulled out as far as I can, but it seems like the end is all mushroomed out and it's not coming out. So I don't know if from factory you're supposed to have the head off or something to pull it out. But I'm gonna go ahead and pop that together because that doesn't look too bad. And then just see, I'll probably crank it over electrically and see if I can get any movement at that push rod. And then yeah, that'll determine whether this thing is pooched or not. Because yeah, I'm hoping that it's not pooched, but we'll see what happens. If it's wrecked, the engine's gonna be coming out and something else is gonna be going in. Because yeah, I can't have no race tractor for Wimborne this year again. So yeah. Alright guys, I'm gonna crank this thing over electrically and we will just see what kind of valve action we got here. I'm just going directly to the starter and shorting it out so it'll crank over easy. Yeah, we have no exhaust valve movement. So I don't know how I managed to wipe the cam lobe off because it still has oil in it and I wasn't idling it for any extended periods of time like some flat tappets wear out that way, but I don't know, maybe this thing had a basically flat cam lobe before. Leave your comments in the below if you think that's might be why the valve was actually, no, it was tight before. So yeah, I don't know why this thing would have no cam lobe on it, but looks like we got no exhaust cam lobe, so guess this engine's coming out. Alright guys, 10 minutes later, the engine is out, and yeah, we now have a bare frame again, which is kind of sucky, because I had almost no video coverage with this engine. But this engine is absolutely pooched, which sucks, but that happens, I guess. Now I am gonna go figure out what engine I can drop into here. Hopefully I'll find something, we'll see what happens. Alright, so I got this complete mower. I'm not tearing it apart though, because it's complete, everything is there. Aside from the belt slips a little bit. It's all there and working, so that's not happening, but it is a 15.5 Tecumseh. Another Tecumseh. See? So that's not working. This engine basically should stay with this tractor, but it could come out. If it needed to, it could come out, I guess. This 111 has no engine in it. This has got a 19.5 horse opposed twin in it. I could stick that in there. That's probably the way I'll end up going, because that's the right engine for it. That's from my other LT1000, the one that I raised at the first year that I went there. Code named No Top Green, so this could become No Top Green too because it's the same tractor. I do have this diesel, but it's horizontal crank and it's not a racing engine. Then this thing has a 12.5 horse Kohler that I'm in the middle of swapping into it, but looks like it's not super happy about fitting with the hood, and I don't want to cut up the hood, so this could be an option, but I ultimately want more power than that Tecumseh had because it was lacking. So this is likely what I'll end up going with, but I have a plan. This thing didn't really run very good last time I was running it. Something to do with the fuel pump not pumping into the carb, I think, or maybe it was just that the carb was dirty. We'll have to see once this thing is out, then I'll be able to figure out what's going on with it, and if I can get it to run good, then that'll be awesome. Also, this thing already has, let me see if I can zoom in on here. It's already got a 5.5-inch pulley, which would in turn make that tractor have a way taller pulley ratio, which this engine would love because it makes huge torque. And we would be able to go way faster, which I think is the way we're gonna end up going, because that would be awesome. And we could probably hit in excess of 50 kilometers an hour with this thing without any trouble. Plus, if we're power shifting it, then we could probably get off the line really quick. So I think I'm probably going to end up pulling this engine out. We'll see what happens. As a backup plan, I will show you what carburetor I'm going to stick on this thing if I can't get this one to work without much trouble. Okay, guys, so this is a stock manifold from that opposed twin Briggs engine, or it's a off an older one actually. It's the bolt together unit, where they ended up going to a cast piece on the newer ones, which sucks reporting them because you can't get in deeper into here. Whereas on this one, you can see I removed all of that and made this all smoother and nicer. I went around this curve and opened it up as compared to this side, so that it flows a little better. And then, yeah, I did the same thing to the bottom here. You can see where I was smoothing it out in places. It really doesn't help a lot, but there's something to be said about more airflow equals more power. And if I can't get that stock carburetor work nicely, I'm gonna find some screws for this intake to bolt 1, 2, 3 together, saw it off right here, and then I got 2 of these 30mm carburetors that slip right on there like that. And then I have a 2-into-1 throttle cable that'll open these things up wide open, no problem. And these things make amazing power with twin carbs, and I've always wanted to put a twin carb setup on that engine or the one in Beast 2, depending on whichever one I ended up getting to first. And this could be the perfect opportunity because this intake would simply unbolt and you could bolt the stock intake back on if you ever thought you needed to, which would be good. It does complicate things a little bit for the fuel system, where I would have to have a Y pipe coming off of my fuel line. After this piece here, I would have to at some point split it into 2 lines and hook it up 1 and 2 carburetors, but totally doable. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pull that other engine out and we'll drop it in here. If we can get it running good, then awesome. Also, I'm gonna need to change my belt size because this belt that's on here is kind of the perfect setup for a 3.5 to a 3-inch pulley, whereas a 5.5 to a 3-inch pulley will require a bigger belt because there's way more surface area on that front pulley, which we can actually show on this engine now that it's junk. So that's a 3.5-inch pulley. This is the pulley that we were running before, and that's the same kind of size as the other one has. You can see how much more surface area this thing has as compared to that right here. And it's also a deeper groove one, so when it gets higher RPM, then the belt will move out more, and it'll start off further in there, which means it acts more like a torque converter, where it can vary the speed a little bit, which is cool. And yeah, so we're gonna, not this pulley, but we're gonna take the pulley that's already on that other engine, and we will drop it into here, and we'll figure out something, a 2-into-1 exhaust to go into our existing Harley muffler, because I really, really like how that looks. Or maybe I'll mount a second one right there. We'll see what happens. Anyways, stay tuned for that. I'm going to go ahead and pull that engine out of that other tractor, and I'll bring it over here, and we'll drop it in the frame. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, we'll end up with a dual carb setup on here. We'll see what happens, though. Again, like I said, I really don't know what everything is going to end up leading to. Hey guys, old engine is out, new engine is in. This is a 19.5 horsepower turbo-cooled Briggs Opposed twin. The same engine design as what would have come in here originally, so everything bolts in, which is awesome. Same thing with that 12 horse. Basically, riding mower engine to riding mower engine, everything basically bolts up on most tractors, aside from the wiring typically. Which this one I still have to hook up the kill wire, which is right here. But this thing has its own separate choke, so we no longer have to choke it off by grabbing this and holding it closed. I can just from on the tractor when this is installed, because it goes right there, like in that hole. I'll be able to pull this, pull it out, and pull choke, push it in, have no choke, which is going to be awesome. And then this thing right now has no governor on it, or the governor is deleted, sorry. The other one has no governor on it, but this one has the governor deleted, and foot throttle hooked up right there to the throttle pivot, so we can open and close. It does have a really, really stiff spring on it right now, which I forget why that is, but I feel like that's just because the one that I had, because that's just the one that I had. But I also have this huge excess of throttle cable, so we'll see here. I might be changing some of that up, because yeah, I think it used to go all the way around like this, but I feel like I would like to probably have that 30 mil or 2 on this thing. We'll see what happens though. Also, in case you guys were wondering, this thing has an NGK spark plug on this side. Oh, and it has one on this side. It used to have Champion ones. It used to have a Champion one on that side and an NGK on that side, so I probably replaced that one at some point. And yeah, I'll be able to crank this thing up and make it all start up. Shouldn't be a problem. I am going to pop this carburetor off and run it through the sonic cleaner as well, because why not? So actually, saying that, I should turn the heater on. And yeah, I'll end up pulling this carb off, because from what I remember, this thing was running like garbage. It wouldn't rev up and all that. Could have to do with this air filter too, because it's pretty bad. I'll show you in a minute. If you guys can't already see, it's pretty wrecked. But yeah, I'm gonna run that, and then this thing also got hit at some point, probably when I rolled the original no top green, which I'll show you the hood for later. But the original no top green, I rolled it at Wimborne the first year that I was there, and wiped out pretty hard, bent the frame and a couple other things. But yeah, this air filter is pretty disgusting for holding that stuff, and it didn't block any of the pine needles anyways, so hopefully I don't lose too many of them down there. I'll be able to pick most of these things out, all of them hopefully, because ingesting pine needles is not great for these engines at all. So yeah, I'll get the pine needles out of this thing, don't worry, and then I'll be able to clean up this carb in the sonic cleaner, because I have one, and then I'll hook this thing all up. And if I have the right belt size, we will go for a test drive with the opposed twin cylinder engine and the bigger pulley swap, because we also have brakes now. I'm glad we have brakes now, because this engine makes monster torque. So yeah. Also, the exhaust that we're running, obviously we can't run our single cylinder right here, because we have 2 exits. We might be able to run this on 1 cylinder. No, we can't. But we could make a 2 into 1 piece that comes into here, which would work. And then it would go down into there, which would work, but ultimately not ideal. So I grabbed the original exhaust that came with this thing, not the original TV engine, obviously, that somebody has really decided to build for themselves, a really custom exhaust that fits on this engine without the Harley pipe on there, obviously. But I'll end up cutting this down, the end of this yellow pipe off, because right now, when this is lined up, it's too far, but I feel like if I cut all of that off, it should fit, right? Looking at it, it fits. So cutting about where that green mark is will be perfect, and then I'll be able to figure out how to slip it into this muffler and make it all work. And so yeah, I'm gonna make everything work on this, and we'll see you guys then. So I got the main carburetor. The main action happens in here. It's all off of this thing, but looking in the float bowl, looking how dirty this fuel is, I am taking the rest of this carburetor off as well to run in the sonic cleaner, because yeah, I don't know if you guys can see, but this is pretty grungy looking fuel, and there's some stuff growing in the bottom of this carburetor. So all of that is coming out, because yeah, sonic cleaner will take that apart, no problem. And then yeah, I'll get the pine needles out of the bottom of that, because my throttle return spring is holding the throttle closed really tight right now. So yeah, I got 3 pine needles there I gotta get out. And then yeah, I'll get this off and figure out what to do next. I'll figure out how everything needs to get hooked up to the engine, and figure out if I got the right belt size, or if I need to pick one up on Saturday when I'm in at work. So we'll see what happens. Stay tuned. I'll show you what this carburetor looks like once it's off, and then we'll do a before and after comparison once it's done. Alright guys, I got the carburetor off. The main carburetor body, it's fairly dirty and corroded on the outside. It's aluminum, so yes, corroded. The fuel that's in here, more like water that's in here, Could be why this thing was running like garbage last time that I was running it, so I'll get rid of that. But yeah, you can see that there's some stuff starting to grow in the bottom of that thing there, and the jets are looking a little dirty and green, so especially that one right there. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in the rest of the sonic cleaner, and yeah, same thing with the main carb, the top part. It gets dirty and corroded, and then same thing on the brass float. The float height actually looks pretty good. And so yeah, I am gonna stick these in the sonic cleaner after I tear this part apart, and then yeah, I'll show you guys what they look like afterwards. Guys, I got the carburetor out of the sonic cleaner. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad. It is still a bit wet from being in there. I gotta blow it off still, but overall it's pretty clean. The inside of it's not as grungy as it was before, and the main jet looks pretty clear, which if you didn't know is in here behind this plug, which is a 5/8. And then yeah, the rest of this carburetor also pretty clean. The choke plate's still dirty, but we'll fix that. And then yeah, the main thing with these is that they clean out the insides more than the outsides of the carbs. The outsides of them, the more surface area it's got, the longer it takes. So the outsides clean out less than the insides, easy. But I'm gonna go ahead and slap this all together, and we're gonna see if that engine wants to run. Alright guys, I got the Briggs Opposed Twin all hooked up into our racing mower, the budget build racing mower that is. And yeah, we are fully set up in here. Yes, I puked a bit of oil on the running board when I was test cranking it. Here's what I found with this thing that I completely forgot about. Holding the cable, do you know what that sound is? Anybody who has these Briggs Opposed Twins knows exactly what that sound is. Anybody who's owned one of these for a while. What you're hearing right there is that plastic starter gear has stripped out all of the teeth. And these things suck to change that on. But I have to change it, so yep, I guess that's what I'm doing right now. Alright guys, I have the starter back in. Just changed out this gear, which has all the teeth ripped off of it, for a salvage gear from a different starter. It's a used gear, but it's better than what I had, and I don't have a new one on hand. So once I get this thing on here, then should be able to, it'll pick up like that, and it'll turn the engine. You can see it's not skipping all the teeth, which is good. So yeah, I'm gonna put the top cover back on because it holds the dipstick in, and then we're gonna test this out, and hopefully this thing runs. Alright guys, after pulling this starter off because it's no good, something in this pinion is slipping, and putting on that starter, now I'm gonna try to start this thing again, and we'll see what happens. So I'm just pushing it outside right now just to get it started, and we'll see if this fuel pump picks up fuel and if the carburetor is working or not. So yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, well, it does run. Still needs a bit of tuning on the lower end, but it does run, so that's a start. Alright guys, so I just took this thing for a really quick spin around the yard. I almost made it a lap before it died. And yeah, my suspicions were correct. There's something up with this fuel pump because I'm getting good fuel flow through this line, and the carburetor is running out of gas. So, I gotta figure out whether I can fix this fuel pump, figure out what's going on with it, or maybe I'll just go to dual carbs like the original plan was. We'll see what happens. anyways, this thing does run and drive, which is awesome. And yeah, we'll see what happens here. I'm hoping to have it running and driving for you guys in this video, but we might have to wait until next video before we can do that. So please stay tuned, and if it doesn't happen until next video, we'll see what happens. Just gonna see how long this video is. I'm trying to keep it to 25 minutes to half an hour, hopefully, so we'll see what happens. All right, guys. So I got the top of the carburetor off so that I can see if there's fuel getting pumped through here to the carburetor. You can see that there isn't a lot in the float bowl, but there is some. Fuel should come out right here, out of this hole right above my finger when I'm cranking, because that's where the fuel pump comes out and goes through that hole into the needle and seat and then out, and then these are our jets in here, as well as this guy. So I'm gonna go ahead and crank this thing over and let's see how much fuel comes out of there. So now that I soaked everything with fuel, I know we have fuel coming out of here. So I guess this is something in the actual carburetor still. Maybe we still got a plug jet or something, I don't know. But yeah, we still definitely have fuel coming out everywhere, because you can see it soaked the tires, soaked the frame, soaked the ground everywhere. Didn't expect it to fire up, because yeah, usually they don't. Or usually this one doesn't, because there's no choke on it and it wasn't running without choke, which also leads me to think that it's probably got a plugged up jet. But primarily it's going to be in here that it's going to be plugged, so we'll see. Also could be a float height setting thing, but I think this is fine. We'll see what happens though. I will get this thing running properly, hopefully, and we'll see what happens. My only issue was if it was going to be a fuel pump thing, but obviously we have lots of fuel coming out. So, yeah. Alright guys, I blew everything out in the carburetor really good. And I still have the same problem. You have to run it with about this much choke to stay running at all. And then it varies how much choke you need depending on RPM. I don't know if this is a vacuum leak or if this is a matter of carb adjustment. I don't know for sure what the carb adjustment is on this thing, but I'll figure it out. Anyways, that's it for tonight. I will see you guys tomorrow, where we're going to do some more testing with this thing. I'm really hoping for a great deal with this thing. In case you guys didn't hear, this thing has a different junkyard belt under it than what was under it before, because we have our 5.5-inch pulley. And in third gear, we are about where our fifth gear was before. So I'm hoping that fourth, fifth, and sixth are even faster, so we can go like 45 or more in the top end, because that'd be pretty sweet. Anyways, that's it for tonight. See you guys tomorrow. We're gonna get this thing going properly, and we'll see what happens. All right, guys, so I just finally got this thing running a little better than it was. So I went and took it for a really quick test drive. I made it from here to the front of that truck. You can see over there the white truck right there. And yeah, somehow I managed to blow the pulley up. The brand new 3-inch pulley is wrecked, which sucks. So now I gotta tip this thing on its side and pop that pulley off. I guess our junkyard belt was just not up to the task of getting good enough tension. Cause yeah, that thing is wrecked. So I'm gonna pop that off and figure out what I'm doing next, cause somehow I keep wrecking these pulleys. I gotta figure out if I can find a better pulley that's gonna take the heat of a slipping belt here and there. Alright guys, so here's our two pulleys that we blew up. Here's our 2.5, which we almost got to the point of that this 3-inch got to. Where both of these, the belt was just slipping too much and it overheated it, I guess. Cause yeah, this one just came apart and there's just bits from it everywhere. This is what I found on my yard, just walking around in the grass and stuff. Those are some of the bits that I found. So hopefully I can find a different pulley that'll stand up to some belt slip. And I'll find a better belt, because this one is a junkyard unit that's definitely not good at best. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I guess end the video right here. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'm sorry I didn't get a good test drive in this video, especially not with the opposed twin, but we'll get her going next episode and figure out what's happening with this thing. And once we get a good pulley set up on here, we're going to do a top speed run where I'm hoping we can do in excess of 40 kilometers an hour, which would be pretty sweet. As well as next time we're going to hook up the charging system and the kill wire, because right now I have my ways of shutting it off, but it's not great. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Again, sorry for ending it on such a brief note, but hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next go around.